again, thank you for taking the time out of your day to participate in this. Since you've showed up, obviously, or tuned in, I'm pretty sure that you have a sense for what's going on here, but it's really exciting. We are, embarking on a process to turn the big behemoth building across the street into an activity and recreation center. We aspire to meet some pressing athletic, recreation, and student life needs with the project. And what excites me the most about the project is that I really believe that we're going to improve the quality of students' lived experience on this campus. And there's nothing more that a dean of students wants than that. And so it's a really exciting project. In October, just a couple comments about where the project stands before I sort of invite some conversation here with the team from Studio Gang. In October, the college's board of trustees agreed that our plan for moving the project forward was solid and gave us the green light to formalize a relationship with this crew next to me. And during the next 5 months, what we're about to embark on is the creation of a schematic design. And so in other words, by the end of April, we're going to have a pretty good sense of conceptually sort of what's going to be in the building and how is it going to work in relationship to one another. It's not, the choosing of the tiles, so to speak, but we are going to have a good sense of what's going to be the uses and how do they fit and how are they going to work together to achieve our ends. And today is a really important kickoff to that. This is the start of a relationship with Studio Gang that we expect to last the full length of the project. We're really excited about it. And, this is a kickoff for having Jeanne and her team get to know Beloit and get to know what's important to us as a community. So with no further ado, I'm going to make just a brief introduction of Jeanne and then let her introduce her team. So there's no question that Jeanne Gang's award-winning designs and her recognition as MacArthur Fellow piqued our interest in Studio Gang. And if you've read about Jeanne and her firm, you'll know that we are very fortunate to have attracted her to the project. But frankly, Jeanne, what really sold us is the thoughtfulness with which you approach your projects, and your creativity, your practical creativity at that. And these qualities are really imprinted all over your projects and all over the people that you attract to your team. And it doesn't hurt that you had roots in nearby Belvedere. So
that's great.
Yeah. So do you want to introduce your team?
I'd love to. Can you hear me yet? Testing? Yeah, there we go. Okay. No, thanks for inviting us, Christina. This is a great chance to kick off the project and get to know you as well as you getting to know us. I brought several team members here who are going to help, have this dialogue. Mike and Walker, who is the project architect, designer, with another Beloit connection, but he might tell you later. William Emick, who is project manager on the team and has been with us as well a very long time at Studio Gang. And a newer arrival, Gabriella Poiret, who is joining the team as well as a designer on the project. And then also off the stage is Mark Schendel, my partner. He's there. And Samantha Snodgrass is somewhere over there, back there. So we're all here, and we'd love to chat with you through this conversation and afterwards. So can you show the slide too of the rest of the extended team on the next slide if you have it? In addition to us, the architects, every project takes lots of different people and lots of different expertise. And because the powerhouse is an existing building with an existing structure and we're going to be intervening into that, we also have structural engineers who we have collaborated with on other projects, represented by Jeanne at the end from Matrix Engineering, who we just recently finished the boat houses with, who's a fabulous structural engineer. Sachin, who is just to the left of him, who has a practice called DBHMS, and they specialize in sustainable engineering, so to try to use as little energy as possible and to even produce energy potentially with the building. And so those are kind of two key ones because at this stage in the process, and there will be many more people that will be adding on to this team as well, to bring expertise in, but in the later stages, this is kind of like the core team, and we're also working together with a local architect that will bring their knowledge of the building and of Beloit to the project.
Right. And I noticed that Joe stopped there, so maybe
yes,
just pointing to him.
So
Yep. We have more team members here.
Joe for coming.
Good. Well, so how we're going to go forward with this is I have 5 or 6 questions that sort of we've scripted to be a little structured Q&A, and then we're going to open it up for the last 15 minutes or so to your questions out in the community. So I'm just going to get started with that, if that's okay. Okay, so in an early meeting with you, Jeanne, one of the things that you said is that, over a course of a career, you only have so many projects, and so you thoughtfully choose them, and you're careful about which ones you go after. And you have some characteristics and things that you seek in projects and things that inspire you. And I was wondering if you just might talk a little bit about how you go about selecting projects that you will work on, and what it was in particular about our Powerhouse project that inspired you or caught your attention.
At this point, we get offers to do projects or inquiries to do projects on a regular basis, everything from a hotel to a private individual house to a tall building. But we're usually trying to think about those in terms of how the project can be transformative and bring something to its community. A special interest in our firm, and I think that we all share, is ideas about sustainability and how projects have the potential to really make a difference in terms of their being a model for sustainability is one. Another one is the social aspects and community, and that is always, if a project can build community, that's exactly what we need right now as a society. And sometimes that building can actually help create that. And also for vertical, buildings that will help create a denser environment, urban environment, those are interesting to us. So there's different, I think we evaluate each project on its own, merits, but what we saw with the Beloit Powerhouse project was really a chance to work in a region that is, our home, but also something that is really hitting on a couple of those points. Community and sustainability are the big keys, and also transforming something that was, a coal-burning power plant into a wellness center is just, the transition and transformation is just so strong. It was too much to resist.
We agree. So Beloiters here and watching from home are likely to be interested in some of your recent projects. And in particular, you've been working at colleges that Beloiters might recognize, including places like the University of Chicago and Kalamazoo College. And recently you completed a recreation-focused project in the Chicago, or I guess it's the Clark Park boathouses, right, along the Chicago River. And I guess I'm curious if you or some of your team want to comment on, what insights are you taking away from those projects that you think might apply here?
Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll to William, because we just finished the Clark Park Boathouse and opened it a few weeks ago. It's a project with tanks, rowing tanks in it, and boat storage. But maybe, William, you want to speak to a little bit about how those lessons could be applicable here?
Be learned from what we did on Clark Park that can be applied specifically to this is obviously the river aspect. And how do you treat the river, and how do you get people to engage the river? That's sort of the first thing that comes to mind. The Clark Park Boathouse was very much about getting boats onto the river and then revitalizing the river as a recreation aspect of Chicago, where it was typically focused on Lake Michigan. Now we're focusing on the river. So you sort of have that same amenity that I think that we can apply the same sort of lessons learned there on how to get people on the river, such as like floating docks or just canoeing and kayaking or whatever have you, which would hopefully then bring the students, getting them onto the river as well. So it can connect Beloit and the students in some way, which is
as well. And that's point, and I think, and Mike worked on this project too. One of the key concerns for the building itself was creating social spaces, not just for the particulars of the sport, but also how to make a space for people to hang out after school and what kind of spaces promote that. maybe talk.
And combining community spaces with very particular functional pieces, but also then getting in there and understanding that program, understanding a very specific athletic program, which we knew nothing about when we started, and coming up with a very successful result and a way of blending those programs together.
Talk a little bit about that. I mean, I think that we want you to know us, and we want to know sort of how you work. And as you get to know a program, I realize I'm going a little off script here, but how do you get to know a program? I mean, we have some particular ideas of what we want to see in the project, but how should the community expect to be engaging with you as you get to know what program we're after?
Well, it's about getting to know people and about getting to know, how they envision using a building, what their needs are, how they go about what they do, understanding that, and learning from all of that, and then being able to apply that to a design.
I think the starting, we asked you to do a survey for us, which you turned around very quickly, so you get an A+. But to ask students what spaces on campus they really liked or didn't like and why, and that we are hoping that's one way we can start to get to know, who you guys are and what you're looking for in the building. And as Mike said, we're accustomed to learning things we don't know, like the criteria for the different programmatic aspects, but we also want to know what the spirit of space should be like.
Well, so building from that, there's a lot of interesting possibilities and as well complexities that are might show themselves in this process, and complexity and doing things you didn't know how to do before is clearly not something that you and your firm shy away from. One of the things I remember that particularly impressed me as we were learning about Studio Gang Architects is the project that you did at the Starlight Theater at Rock Valley College, and the theater now has a roof structure that required some pretty extensive engineering, among other investigations, right? And so, I guess I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit more about the complexities, complex problem solving, how you go about, it seems to me you look at something that looks insurmountable and you say, no, I'm going to find that. I'm going to find a way. And I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about that. It seems like a core value of your firm.
I think, I think mentioned in the beginning that every project is unique, and so it starts with building the right team of people and the right expertise. So another consultant that will be working with us on this project is an expert in planning at recreational athletic facilities to get those things right, and there will be some inputs there. But I think that's the key to thinking about the future in any profession right now is, all the best discoveries, all the exciting work is happening across different professional boundaries. Architects are kind of, by nature we do that, but to build the right team with people who are going to bring the right components is really important, and that goes for, how you guys build your team as well, and how we interface together.
Yeah, in an interview just before we were talking about the importance of creating really diverse teams. I was wondering if you could just comment on that, because I thought that was really insightful.
It's something people ask me a lot. I know, Gabrielle, I want to draw you into the conversation because, at our office, it's very diverse, and there's a lot of different people, and we kind of see that as an asset. And I don't know, is that a question you can hit?
I seeked out Studio Gang specifically for that aspect of the office. I come from Montreal, and I worked on a lot of rec centers, including pools, in the past. So I guess that's why I've been drafted on this project, which I'm really excited to start work on. But yeah, everyone, that's how they staff the project, so they get the best out of the office and tailor it to the project at hand.
Just that we see, we try to find different points of view, and so individuals bring their experience, and I think I said earlier, it's like what container you came in as a person and where that container was opened as a geography, And those are things that are really valuable to us because it brings these different experiences that can help enrich the design, and we see that as a huge asset. We seek out that diversity for that reason.
So, you know, repeatedly in our conversations, you've talked about, I'm going to take a little different direction here. You've used the phrase starting with what's there. And I think the way I interpret that is to say that you want to look at what assets a project already has or a building. And William, you picked up on this one already, but I guess I'd like to see if we could expand on it a little, because you've noted that one of the powerhouse's assets is the fact that it sits at the Rock River. And you know, we're sort of a river college that's not quite made its way to the river yet. And this is a sort of a really neat opportunity to make that happen. And so I guess I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the work that you've done around water and natural ecosystems like that, because I think it's going to be relevant here. And then just some of your early thinkings and musings about the role that the Rock River is going to play in our project.
Yeah, I can start off. I mean, when the aspect of the assets, you know, the Rock River is really an asset to the region, and so that's something we want to look at. You know, how is it a connective element between the college and Beloit and the regional area? Like, how could it maybe start to suggest ways to make those connections? That's one asset. Another asset is really, you know, the building itself. Like, who builds structures like this anymore? And now you have this great chance to grab onto that. Maybe you guys want to jump in on the structure.
Well, I mean, it's an amazing building, and we're really desperate to get our hands on it and see what we can do with it. And it's a big challenge to figure out how you connect the campus to the river through that building, but it's a really exciting challenge, and it's one that I think we're going to have a lot of fun with and get some great results from.
Yeah, I thought it was really insightful in the interview phase when you all were on campus, how you sort of zoomed way out, right, from the campus, like way out. I mean, you were looking at where Turtle Creek flows in and sort of the watershed, and just a huge zoom out, which for me was a great moment to say, wow, this does have an impact across the region, or has potential to, right? It's really exciting.
We were also looking at this. It's a very typical, in a way, relationship between industry and agriculture in this region, and it's also, it has the opportunity to demonstrate what to do with that industrial past, you know. So that's a kind of a bigger picture aspect that I think could be very, it could be a model for other communities that are struggling to understand what to do with their industrial buildings.
Yeah, do you want to build off that a little more? I mean, I think that one of the assets of this project, no doubt, has to do with the rich history. And, you know, what does that cause you to think about? What does it inspire? How does it inspire you?
Do you want to try?
I can give this.
Okay.
I've thought a lot about this. The rich history of first the building is that it made energy. You know, it pretty much promoted energy and advancement. And what I'm noticing from what we've read about Beloit College itself, and from what I've learned from everybody that we've met, is that there's also a promotion of energy going on here. So I think there's a draw of that connection of physical energy that we use with lights, and then the physical energy that we have inside of us, that there's a connection there somehow that we can really make a great synergy. And I'm extremely excited about that. And that's what I have to say about it.
Okay.
The historic piece you asked, I mean,
The history of the building is kind of synonymous with history of the college. I mean, they were built, I mean, the powerhouse has fueled the whole region and the whole buildup of this area from when it was just, you know, a little spot outpost on the river. So they've come up together, and now, but separately, and now it's a chance to, like, you know, combine them, and there is a good chance to tell the history, and maybe in the building there are moments where that history gets revealed to you in some way.
Yeah, that feels really exciting.
Yeah.
So I want to get real practical just for a moment, and then get your questions brewing, because I'm going to open it out to the group here in a minute. But I want to get real sort of nutsy, boltsy, so to speak. What happens next? I mean, so, you know, some people are new to construction projects, may not know sort of how these things progress. And so I guess I was just wondering if you could, the next phase for us is schematic design. So what does that mean? What should we be expecting to see in April? You know, when you come back for another visit and you're sort of showcasing your ideas, what would that be?
First, we're not just going to go away and then show up in April with, you know, the schematic design. It's a process of working together with you and producing options and possibilities. We're kind of trying to tease out the potential of the project right now. And so I guess what happens on our side, in our office, we will be creating product to help us understand the building better, whether it's a big model or whether it's a digital model, and start to really get into what this building can do and how these programs fit inside of it. So we do that, you know, in a very low-tech way by building a physical model that's, you know, the fun giant building that like a dollhouse, imagine, you know, that we're fitting these things into. But we also have the digital tool that will allow us to scan the building and really know in space where all the floors and things are. So we're going to be getting to know the building, how the program marries in, and create these different options that we'll be reviewing with the Beloit team to see what seems right, or if something from this one works with something from that one, to create at the end of the phase one option, you know, one schematic design that represents the ideas and the spirit of the project and can also be priced accurately. So it's the first step in a long process of doing a building where you're really defining the design. What is it? What does it look like? What's inside there? How big is it? And how much does it cost?
Okay, and you may have questions about that, but that gives us at least a good sense for sort of what happens between now and April, right?
And then just
to fast forward, just what the rest of the phases are is then there's a phase of developing the design, you know, getting more into the details and the construction details, and getting more accurate pricing and starting, you know, getting early approvals for certain things. And then finally the construction drawings, which are basically like, you know, the instruction set for the builders to work from and to produce, you know, make the building happen in physical sense. And then, you know, the last phase of it is the construction itself, and then following it through the construction where the builders are on site working, and the architecture team, our combined team with our local architect and the engineers are checking in on construction to make sure they match up. And then it's done. And then we open it, ribbon cutting, and then everybody gets to use it.
Everyone is very excited about it, I'm sure.
I forgot about the fundraising part.
Oh, there's fundraising, right? I'm sure President Bierman is sitting out here somewhere saying, oh, getting very nervous, got to raise all this money. And probably some of you are sitting out there wondering, well, that sounds like a really long process, right? And I think what our aspiration is today, at least, is still that 2017. That's our aspiration as of now. There's a lot, as you could hear, this whole process combined with some really, I sort of joke about it, but some very significant fundraising activity. These two things take a handful of years, but the aspiration is to open in fall of 2017. So. Great. Well, I appreciate this time to sort of exchange with you, but I know that Beloiters are nothing if they're not shy, I guess is what I want to say. So I invite you now to shoot your hands up, and let's get a little bit more dialogue going here with you all. Who wants to go first? Right.
Thank you. Well, welcome. I was wondering, when approaching this project or your projects in general, how do you try to incorporate sustainability into the design, both trying to minimize the short-term and long-term environmental impacts of a building?
Started, there's several components to sustainability. And the very first component of sustainability with this building is that it already exists. So it's a big start there because we have so much reusable material, including the basic structure and the walls of the building itself. The next big component is typically focusing on how the building uses energy. So how are you dealing with air movement through the building? How are you dealing with sunlight on the building? One of Sachin's first, he's our environmental engineer, one of his first issues is how do we get more daylight in there? So we're using less electric light. We are sitting right on top of a hydro station, a hydroelectric power station. We're hoping there's some way to leverage that for the building.
It's a very good point. And I think it's worth reiterating that, the first step is really, it is sustainable reuse the building, but the very first design activity is to reduce how much energy you have to use. And then after that, look at ways that you can tap into renewable energy sources. So first, like reducing the energy footprint as far as possible, and taking advantage of things so that we don't have to, use it, and then look at what those renewables might be, whether it's water or solar.
Right. Or is there a way to get air moving through a building where you don't have to blow it with a fan, right? So things like that.
Very good.
Hello. I would like to hear more from you guys. I think one of the great assets of this project is that not only is it a part of Beloit College, but it's also a part of the Beloit community. And so I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about your plans. You've mentioned some great ways that you've engaged the Beloit College community in the design of this building, and I'm wondering about your plans for engaging the Beloit community overall.
Great question. I think it's one of the things we found in our process so far in working with communities is it really is, there are some great ideas that come out of meetings, whether it's a charrette or just an informational meeting, that people have strong feelings about things because they live there. I think organizing that interface with the community is going to be a really key, important thing to our process. And again, it's about letting them know the plans of what you plan to do, but also hearing like what things that they've been thinking about. Our initial thought was, just that this is definitely, there's a river that connects these spaces, and potentially, and I don't know when it would happen, but there could be a chance for a recreational, trail or something that makes this building part of a recreational trail that loops around, that could start to get the community to adhere. But there's probably many more things too that we need to hear from people about. But I guess to answer your question, we need to organize that session and design what that interface will be so that we can get the best results out of it.
Bianca.
Of the climate and lighting issue of when students will be using it is in the evening time and mostly during the winter, during the later, shorter days and everything. Does that pose kind of a challenge to you, or are you interested in engaging the kind of darkness that we have to wager through in the wintertime? Because it gets kind of depressing, and you're gonna have a lot of, you talked about engaging the sunlight and everything, but what about the lack of sun? Do you guys have any comments about that?
It's a good question. I think we had just started talking about what are going to be the hours of operation of the building. Will there be parts of it that are 24, or will it be, what are the and that will go a long way to, that's going to be a question that Beloit College, you guys have to help us to understand, because, opening that building up and keeping it fired up all night long during the winter months is going to be a huge energy sap. So is there a way that we can think about, strategically firing up a portion of it that lasts longer into the evening hours? But as you know, it gets dark at 4 o'clock, so that's going to, need energy. So
the other big resource we have there is not just the sunlight, but also the river water. We can draw both cooling and heating from the river water. And that's one of our plans, is to take that water into the building, into a heat exchanger, pass it back to the river.
Yeah, there is, Mike spoke earlier about the potential for hydro. We have to explore that. But the second aspect of the river, just the geothermal aspect of the water down deep, we can extract like a 55-degree temperature from that water that's deep, similar to geothermal in the ground. But one of the things that our engineer already discovered on the building is there's already a built-in intake on the building. So it might make it really cost-effective to do the pond, it's called pond geothermal, to reduce the energy loads of the building.
And Bianca, to build off your question a little bit, I mean, we haven't made any decisions, but certainly one of the driving forces for doing this project to begin with is the recognition that, of course, we're a Midwest college where it's cold and it's dark a lot of the year when you're here, and seeking a solution for that, so to speak, to recognize that student life happens into the darkness at night.
It puts.
It shows that the importance of the building is going to be able to be a cozy place at the same time as an exciting, big space that will be inhabited inside during the winter for long hours too. So I think it gives more charge to us to make sure that it works on a social level and an engaging level, so that people can be in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm sort of facilitating a group of faculty, staff, and students right now. We're calling ourselves the Schematic Design Committee, I guess. And we did this exercise recently where we said what would be success and what would be failure. And the first thing that I think everybody agreed on was that our main objective is to have a lot of students over there many hours of the day, to fill it up, to have it feel really lively, and in full recognition that those hours will be in the evening. So. Brack? Oh, sorry.
That's
Kiara,
okay.
why'd you go?
Hi there. I just had a question that kind of goes off Christina's. How do you guys plan to utilize this building in connection to campus? Because I know there's a lot of talk about potentially using a bridge or some sort of pathway to kind of bring people in, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are and how to kind of bring people across the road and make them engage in the space.
Well, we don't have a preconceived idea of how to do it, but we do have an idea of how we're thinking about it. There's one way to go under the road, there's one way to cross the road, and there's one way to go over the road. Which one is the best one, we don't know, and I think that's where all of you come into play to see how you also sort of move about campus and what is the best route for you, and then what's the most safe route, obviously. So it's a matter of us doing the investigation and finding out what you need and what is feasible and what is going to make for a great space as well, or lead you to a great space. So it's a good question, but not able to be answered definitively right now.
We also need to think about the road itself. It's a pretty interesting road with a pretty interesting history. A few miles down this Graceland, and it goes on down into the Mississippi Delta. It has a pretty rich history down there. So.
You hit on a thing that we've been thinking about a lot is how do you get there, and Ari will attest to bringing to our attention repeatedly that we don't want it to seem like Beloit far, and so I think What? Beloit Far, yes. I'm going to give Ari credit for that one. I guess I would just say it's something that undecided at this point, but you're taking it very seriously, knowing that that's a huge deal. How do you get there is a huge, huge, important decision that we have to make. Brock?
So, I was wondering, on the little informational pamphlet thing, it said a little bit about radical creativity was one of the terms that was used, which I really like. And so, for a moment to move into the very hypothetical, what would you say is the most radically creative random idea that you've come up with for this project, if any, just sort of that's really out there and ridiculous? Yeah.
I think it's a great question, because like, what could you do if you could do anything? I mean, of course, there's always parameters and budgets and things like that, but you know, William touched on earlier the idea that it's a powerhouse. Like, what if everything we did inside created power? Like, exercising on a bike created power, and all of that started to work towards this, you know, vibrating building that's creating more power than it uses. That would be awesome if we can get, you know, something like that. I think we would all really like that.
The craziest idea I've heard was a zip line from the top of the stack back to camp, back to this side of the. You don't think that's crazy? Okay. Great.
Has been framed a lot as a building for activeness or activities. So I'm curious with the survey results that you had for spaces on campus. What are some of your concepts or ideas for making this a place of activeness, of activities? Yeah, sports are great, and I love sports. But like, has this is for sports and also for many people on campus? So some of your concepts and ideas with that.
We don't know the survey results yet. We're going to be learning about that right after this meeting. But maybe, Gabrielle, maybe a chance to jump in on what makes a space, what could make it active besides just the activity of the professional sports going on there, the pre-professional sports.
I think a lot of other programs besides sports are going to have to mingle, but it was mentioned in our previous meetings that differences of scale can make people comfortable. The big open space concept was something that was very emphasized by the college as something that is important for a meeting place. So how to create spaces within that big open space that still feel like everyone is together without having to, you know, someone's trying to have a meeting and then there's sweaty runners you're walking past, and how is that not an awkward situation? I think that's going to be an interesting challenge for us. But it's definitely possible to coexist. And I think Beloit College is one great example of various communities really engaged and involved together. So we're going to try and harness that in our design, definitely.
Like I mean, just examples, like having some type of activities that are recreation, but not necessarily a sport, like ping pong and pool tables and things that are, you know, are foosball tables, things that can create just a passive, not passive, but in a recreational kind of relationships between people, but you can still have a conversation, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, you're not playing sports and scoring and being in the collegiate, I don't know, just the competitive sports that are there, but also just recreational things that break down barriers between people and allow you to have better social conversations.
Hello. I love Studio Gang's promotion of sustainability, but I was wondering if there's anything with restoration that you guys are thinking of. I know Beloit College used to be at Oak Savannah, and it'd be really cool if we can incorporate the ecological history as long as the industrial history, and I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts of that.
You want to talk about the...
Well, we are very interested in that, and particularly what happens to that coal yard and the little piece of riverfront that we have to deal with there. And one of the people on our team is, I think some of you know him here in the college, Steve Applebaum. He's an ecologist just down the road in Broadhead. So we're bringing him into the team, and he's going to help us understand what kind of native resources we already have here and what we can do to help bring some of those back and restore some things. And so that's going to be very interesting, very important for us part of the project.
Meets Oak Savannah.
I'm just curious. I would like to.
I did my research, my thesis research on monumentality and civic buildings. The program was related to wastewater treatment, so I'm really interested in the industrial past of the building that we're going to be reusing, as well as the adjacency with the river. And the program, all of that together, I think has the potential to make this really great civic institution as well as institutional, like just for academia, and could potentially create this new like beacon of activity for the city as well as the college.
I think I expressed my interest in the idea of the different energies between people and then the creation of energy from the power plant. I think there's something to be said about that I think will inspire and inform the building. And what's drawn me also is the deep history of Beloit, and it being nearly the first community of Wisconsin, and also this power plant being the first power plant nearly of Wisconsin. So there's profound interest in that. And then also the challenges of it, because I'll be project managing it, the challenges of juggling the team in a building such as this that I've never tackled before. So I think that for me is going to be great when it's completed, saying, wow, tackled that one, great.
Well, I think the first thing that got me interested was the fact that my wife is a Beloit alumna. She was in the fine art program. Beyond that, it's just such a great building and a building type to be able to work with. And there are some great examples around the world of projects similar to this. I've always been interested in this. We have these parts of the country, towns like Beloit and other places like it, where we're in this post-industrial phase, and how do you take that landscape and regenerate it and bring the machine and the garden back together again. So that's all very exciting, challenging stuff.
I'm so excited that there are these different takes on it. It's a great question. And for me, it's, how can it become a paradigm for this type of project elsewhere? So how can it inspire other communities to take their post-industrial buildings, whatever they may be, and transform them, keep them, and transform them into a contemporary use that creates community. So I think that's my zoomed out version. There's many things I agree, like just the getting into the building more intimately and understanding it. But I think that this is one of the reasons, again, back why we picked the project, because it is, and you are a visionary to be doing this. I mean, it's not everyone is doing this. They're tearing down buildings like this all over the place and wiping out lots of this industrial past, losing great buildings, but also losing the chance to make them significant places. Where's the there? When you go to Beloit College, this will be something that you will be able to point to, and again, I think it'll provide an example for other places.
Well, on that note, we're actually running out of time, and I know there's more questions. I think that the team here will have a few minutes before we head off on some campus tours. I just want to say a couple things. Thank you so much for those of you who responded to the terrarium survey. And just so you know that we're taking your input very seriously. All of that input that about 100 of you, many of you probably in the room, will be shared with the SGA team. So I just want you to know when we ask for input, we are taking it seriously. It's going to be fed directly into our process. So when you see additional opportunities, please do participate. Your voice really matters, because even though there's a team of us sort of facilitating this, we really can't do this alone. We don't want to do this alone. Our voices aren't enough. So please look for more opportunities like that. And so I think I'll just wrap this up by saying thank you to our guests. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your sort of candidness with our community, and we look forward to a lot more of these kinds of encounters. So thank you.
Thank you.